There's a video that broke the internet last year, and it has nothing to do with a scandal, a controversy, or anything that usually breaks the internet. It's just a man sitting alone in his home, watching his phone, and falling apart. That man is Rafael Nadal, the greatest clay court player who ever lived. A man who built his legacy on being unbreakable, who spent 2 decades refusing to show weakness in front of opponents, who dragged himself through injuries that would have ended most careers 3 times over, who won Roland Garros 14 times like it was a personal possession. That man was sitting in Mallorca, watching footage on a small screen, and he was crying. Not subtly, not with the quiet dignity of someone managing their emotions in public. He was gone, completely overtaken. And the footage he was watching wasn't from Wimbledon or the US Open or any Grand Slam at all. It was a young woman from the Philippines, 20 years old, collapsing onto a hard court somewhere in Mexico, face buried in her hands, completely overwhelmed. And within hours of that video spreading, the entire tennis world, and honestly a lot of people who couldn't care less about tennis, had the same question. Who is she, and why does she mean that much to him? That question has an answer, and is one of the most genuinely moving stories this sport has ever quietly produced. Let's go back to 2016. Mallorca, Spain. The Rafa Nadal Academy. If you've never seen it, picture this. Immaculate clay courts bathed in Mediterranean sunlight, elite juniors from across Europe grinding through 6-hour training days, an environment built entirely around the philosophy that greatness is earned through suffering and repetition and nothing else. It is not a soft place. It was never designed to be. That year, a 12-year-old girl from Manila arrived at those gates with a single bag and a scholarship. Her name was Alex. She was small, she was quiet, and she came from a country where tennis is not the dominant sport, where elite coaching infrastructure barely exists, where the path to professional tennis is genuinely harder, in ways that have nothing to do with talent and everything to do with resources and access and opportunity. She had none of the advantages most of her peers had grown up with. No famous family name attached to the sport, no generational coaching relationships, no established network of connections across the European junior circuit. What she had was the scholarship, the willingness to be uncomfortable for years, and something inside her that nobody could quite measure yet. Training at that academy as a scholarship athlete is not easier than training there as a paying student. It might actually be harder, because the unspoken pressure to justify your place never fully goes away. Every morning, she woke up in a dormitory room far from home and proved herself against kids who arrived with more of everything. She lost matches she probably deserved to win. She had bad stretches, homesick stretches, stretches where the gap between where she was and where she wanted to be must have felt genuinely impossible to close. She came back every single morning. There's a particular kind of person who responds to adversity that way. Not by pretending it doesn't hurt, but by absorbing it, sitting with it overnight, and showing up again before it fully fades. Rafael Nadal recognized that person the moment he started paying attention to her development, because he had been that person, on those exact same courts, decades earlier. He didn't formalize anything immediately. There was no official announcement, no press release, no coaching arrangement made public. He simply watched. And over time, we saw wasn't just a talented young player from an unlikely background. He saw someone who processed pressure the way he did, who refused to treat a single point as irrelevant, whose competitive instincts were wired in a way that serious coaches spend entire careers trying to install artificially in players and almost never succeed. He started working with her, not occasionally, not casually, with genuine investment. And that investment would eventually produce something the sport wasn't fully prepared for. By 2022, Alex won the Australian Open girls title. She was a junior Grand Slam champion. The commentary from that tournament, if you go back and watch it, carries this quality of people searching for language adequate to describe what they were seeing. She was technically refined in a way that felt advanced beyond her years, mentally composed in moments where most juniors unravel, and playing with this relentless baseline aggression that had a specific signature to it. Anyone who had watched Nadal for 20 years saw something familiar in it, and couldn't quite articulate why. She turned professional, and the losses started. Opponents who were older, stronger, more experienced, ranked hundreds of positions above her in every measurable category. She lost a lot of those early matches. She came back for every single one of them, without exception. Then March 2025. Miami Open. She arrived as a wild card. World ranking 140. On paper, she had absolutely no business being competitive in that draw. It was loaded with former Grand Slam champions, established top 10 players, people who had been operating at the highest level for years. She beat Madison Keys in the second round. Clean, composed, controlled. The tennis world noticed. She beat Yelena Ostapenko in the third. A former Roland Garros champion whose aggressive, flat, almost chaotic ball striking has broken the concentration of seasoned professionals across every surface. Alex adapted mid-match, refused to panic, worked out the puzzle, and walked off the court having solved it. Then the quarterfinal. Iga Swiatek, world number 2, multiple Grand Slam champion, arguably the most mentally dominant force women's tennis had seen in years. A player known specifically for her ability to dismantle opponents psychologically, for her consistency under pressure, for her refusal to give matches away. Alex beat her in straight sets. The tennis internet did not know what to do with itself. Former players issued statements. Broadcast journalists scrambled for vocabulary. The word generational appeared everywhere because nothing more precise was available. And from Mallorca, in retirement, Rafael Nadal watched all of it and felt the specific pride of someone who had seen it coming for 9 years. Then came the private message. Nadal had officially retired the previous November in a farewell that genuinely moved the sport in a way few sporting retirements ever manage. He reached out to Alex directly after Miami. The content stayed private, but in a post-match interview that itself went viral within minutes, she referenced hearing from Rafa with this expression that communicated everything without saying anything. She said the words meant something she couldn't translate into a press conference setting. The world understood anyway. June 2025. Eastbourne, England. The grass court swing, 2 weeks before Wimbledon. Alex reached the final. Championship points arrived. She was one clean, executable shot away from lifting her first WTA title. She missed it, then missed the next one. The momentum shifted with that specific surgical cruelty that only tennis manufactures, where one moment of hesitation cascades into 5, and suddenly the match is gone. She lost. She sat in her chair at the changeover, and she wept. Not composed professional weeping. She wept the way a person weeps when they've poured everything into something and still come up short, openly, completely, with nothing held back for the cameras or the crowd, or the expectation that athletes should manage their grief with more dignity than the rest of us. The clip spread immediately, and in Mallorca, Nadal saw it. He reshared it with 4 words. She will be back. Not analysis, not coaching advice wrapped in a public post. 4 words from a man who had lost Wimbledon finals, who had experienced championship point collapses from both sides of that emotional divide, who knew exactly what Alex was sitting with and wanted her, and the entire watching world to hear one clear and unambiguous truth. The response was enormous. Hundreds of thousands of comments in 2 days. Tennis fans, Filipino supporters, Nadal devotees, people who hadn't watched a match in years. All of them gathered beneath 4 words, and the specific weight those 4 words carried coming from that specific person. September 2025. Guadalajara, Mexico. Late-season hardcourt event, the kind of tournament where careers quietly pivot on results that rarely get the coverage they deserve. Alex entered the final having ground through a brutal 3-set semi-final the day before. She was visibly drained. She lost the first set. 8 minutes into the second, it looked like Eastbourne was repeating itself. Different court, same story, the opponents smelling blood and constructing points with growing confidence. And then something changed. No single visible moment, no dramatic gesture, no coaching timeout that unlocked anything. She simply decided. The hesitation of the first set was replaced by something controlled and ferocious and completely decisive. Her opponent had no answer. Alex won the second set, won the third, won the championship. And when the final point landed and the full weight of everything arrived in her body simultaneously, 3 years of professional losses, dormitory nights in Mallorca, Eastbourne, Miami, all of it hitting at once, she dropped to the court and stayed there. Face in her hands, racket somewhere beside her, completely gone. The crowd in Guadalajara gave her every second of it. And in Mallorca, Nadal watched the footage and felt something crack open in his chest that he wasn't fully prepared for. The video of his reaction spread within the hour. Tens of millions of views. Headlines in 40 countries. Journalists who covered tennis and journalists who absolutely did not all writing the same sentence in different languages. November 2025. Exactly 1 year after the most emotionally significant retirement in professional tennis history, Nadal walked back onto a practice court. No tournament attached, no cameras arranged, no press obligation of any kind. Just practice clothes, 2 rackets, and Alex. They practiced together for 2 hours. What came out of that session through people close to both, and eventually through Alex herself in a candid interview, was a description of something that was technical and deeply personal simultaneously. Nadal worked on her forehand specifically. Grip pressure at contact, follow-through angle, weight transfer into the ball. The precise mechanical details that generate topspin without sacrificing directional control. Not general concepts pulled from a coaching manual. The exact specifics that he had spent 20 years perfecting against the finest players the sport had ever produced. He was giving her the blueprint. Alex said afterward that she spent portions of the session convincing herself it was actually happening, that the name on the building around her belonged to the person standing across the net feeding her balls and offering technical corrections with complete authority. She described one specific moment, a rally, where he demonstrated the forehand himself, moving carefully because of the surgically repaired joints, but striking the ball with a quality that reminded everyone present why the greatest ever debate always circles back to his name. She said she stopped moving entirely and just watched the ball go past. He laughed and told her to keep playing. She said she almost couldn't. That clip traveled differently than Guadalajara. Less explosive, quieter. It landed hardest with ordinary people, with fans who had grieved Nadal's retirement in a way that surprised them, who had felt his absence from the tour as something genuinely personal, suddenly confronted with the image of him on a court again, not competing, but transferring, giving everything he had learned and refined across a 20-year career to the person most capable of carrying it forward. The torch wasn't simply passed. It was lit together. So when you see the video of Nadal crying in Mallorca, watching a 20-year-old from Manila fall apart on a court in Mexico after winning her first title, you're not watching a celebrity reacting to a feel-good story. You're watching a decade of genuine belief, of patient investment, of one extraordinary competitor recognizing something rare in a young girl from the other side of the world and deciding quietly, without announcements or cameras, to pour everything he knew into helping her become what he could already see she was capable of becoming. Alex became a champion. Rafa broke down watching it happen. And somewhere in between those two facts lives something this sport will be talking about long after both their careers belong entirely to history.